How climate change impacts India's economy. Hello, aspirants. Welcome to our strategic tour of how climate change is reshaping India's economy. In the next few minutes, we'll decode headline numbers, vulnerable sectors, and policy levers, knowledge that directly lifts your GS3 and essay answers.
Why the UPSC?
This theme links environment, economy, disaster management, and agriculture on the GS3. It also feeds the ethics paper via justice and intergenerational equity, and the essay paper via the SDGs and global climate governance. Use it to prove analytical depth, not rote facts. Macroeconomic exposure. The Reserve Bank of India warns that 4.5% of GDP could be at risk by 2030. External models put the cumulative hit at 19% of GDP by 2050 in a no-action path. Up to 50 million Indians can slip back into poverty if climate shocks accelerate. Remember and emphasize nature-dependent economy. The World Economic Forum flags that 33% of India's output sits on natural capital foundations: agriculture, forestry, fisheries, even construction. The takeaway keyword is nature-dependent GDP. When ecosystems erode, national income falls. Long-run GDP impact scenarios. Scenario work shows potential losses of 6 to 10% of annual GDP by 2100 without decisive mitigation and adaptation. Highlight that adaptation yields up to a fourfold return for every rupee invested. Heat waves, rising frequency. India recorded its longest heat wave in 2024. Today, 42% of land suffers at least 1 month of extreme drought each year. Stress the compound hazard: heat, drought, wildfire nexus. Heat stress and labor productivity. The ILO calculates a 5.8% drop in working hours by 2030, translating to 8 lakh crore rupees in lost productivity. Construction, mining, and agriculture dominate this loss. Embed the phrase heat stress economics. Power demand spike. Peak electricity demand hit 250 gigawatts on 30 May 2024. Forecasts see another 10% surge this summer. Stress the keywords peak load, grid resilience, and cooling demand curve. State spotlight. Punjab. Punjab clocked a record 17,233 megawatts in July 2025. Free power subsidies already top 9,000 crore rupees. Note the term fiscal heat stress, climate costs that blow out state budgets. Cooling economy dashboard. Air conditioner sales grow at 15% CAGR. Unless efficiency standards catch up, we could lock in 300 million tons CO2e by 2047. Point students to the India Cooling Action Plan. Agriculture, vulnerability, overview. 55% of India's cropped area is rain fed. Erratic monsoons mean yield volatility, rural distress, and food price spikes. Key phrase rain fed risk. Crop damage 2016 to 2021. Extreme rainfall damaged 33.9 million hectares. Drought hit another 35 million. Economic loss about $159 billion in 2021 alone. Serious. Use crop failure cascade. Heat impacts on wheat. Annoyed. Every 1 degree rise during grain filling erodes wheat yield by 7%. The 2022 heat wave shaved up to 35% of Punjab UP output, sending public buffer stocks to a 16-year low. Keyword heat induced yield shock. Extreme weather and food inflation. Serious. Since 2022, heat waves and flash floods have doubled episodes of food inflation. Think onions, tomatoes, cereals. Stress climate driven supply shocks. Livestock and dairy losses. Heat stress cost the dairy sector 12 billion rupees a year in the Gangetic belt. Poultry feed intake drops 36% in hot spells. Remember, thermal neutral zone. Keep animals within it. Fisheries and coastal livelihoods. East Coast ecosystem services could shrink by 25% in 25 years, equal to $17 billion. Highlight ocean warming migration of fish stocks. A half meter rise may cause 0.5 to 0.6% of GDP by 2050 through port flooding and salt intrusion. Note coastal GDP hotspots. Coastal displacement risks. Annoyed. At least 1 million people in the Sundarbans may need relocation by mid century. Assertive. Use planned retreat and climate migration. Natural catastrophe losses. Cyclones, floods, and landslides caused $12 billion in 2023, 50% above the decade average. Insurance penetration below 1% of GDP widens the protection gap. Insurance and fiscal stressed. Loss ratios exceed 75%. Insurers pull back, leaving the state to foot relief bills. Mention catastrophe bonds and parametric insurance as solutions. Water stress snapshot. With 18% of the world's people and 4% of its water, India faces severe water stress. Groundwater overdraft already jeopardizes food security. Composite Water Management Index. NITI's CWMI 2.0 ranks Gujarat and Rajasthan high, 9 states low. Stress. Data driven hydro governance. Flood drought double whammy. Sikkim's 2023 flash floods coincided with droughts in the Deccan. This Covanot extremes pattern demands river basin management. Inflation and monetary policy. The RBI now embeds climate scenarios into its inflation targeting models. Unchecked supply shocks can derail disinflation paths. Energy Transition Scorecard. Installed renewables crossed 220 gigawatts in March 2025. Target 500 gigawatts by 2030. Emphasize grid modernization and green hydrogen. Green jobs boom. Solar PV employs 238,000 people. Wind adds another 45,000. Call this just transition employment. Just transition challenge. Coal still supports 21 lakh jobs. Phasing down responsibly needs over $1 trillion. Use just transition finance. Adaptation expenditure trend. India spends 5.6% of GDP on adaptation, but spending skews toward richer states. Stress, adaptation, equity gap. Financing needs gap. The NDC pegs total climate finance needs at $2.5 trillion to 2030. Mobilize green bonds, blended finance, MDB reforms. Climate finance taxonomy. A 2025 draft taxonomy clarifies what counts as green, aligning India with EU and ASEAN frameworks. Keyword greenwash guardrail. Banking sector risk management. From FY 2026, banks must disclose transition risk and physical risk scenarios. Expect climate risk based pricing. Capital markets, BRSR core. Top 1000 listed firms need third party assurance on ESG matters. This underpins investor confidence and lowers cost of capital for green leaders. Health costs, extreme heat. Heat waves have killed 24,000 Indians since 1992. City heat action plans and cooling centers save both lives and GDP. Rising vector-borne diseases, changing rainfall extends dengue and malaria zones. Public health budgets must include climate resilience lines. Mental health and productivity disasters, uncertainty and climate anxiety impose $90 billion indirect cost from lost workdays and caregiving. The WHO lists eco-grief and climate anxiety as emerging disorders. Solutions: community mental health centers, green spaces for stress relief, and mainstreaming psychosocial support in disaster SOPs. Use the phrase hidden costs of climate. Tourism sector losses. Delhi's PM 2.5 spikes cost tourism nearly $2.6 billion yearly, say CSE studies. Similarly, Himalayan glacier retreat shortens ski seasons, while severe heat discourages coastal travel. Inject environmental quality as economic capital. Policy levers, differential tourist tax, green certification for hotels, and dynamic carrying capacity norms under eco-sensitive zones. Himalayan economy and glacial melt. The Himalaya holds 9,500 glaciers. Their retreat threatens hydropower, irrigation, and the Char Dham pilgrimage. Landslides like the 2023 Joshimath subsidence reveal cryosphere risk meeting geotechnical fragility. Solutions: strict eco-sensitive zoning, real-time landslide sensors, and diversifying local economies toward low-impact tourism and handloom crafts. Supply chains and manufacturing. Floods in Chennai 2015, Vadodara 2019, and the 2023 Yamuna rise halted factories, idled labor, and ruptured logistics for firms from L&T to Maruti. Introduce supply chain climate screening, analyzing location exposure before capex. Mention PLI guidelines could incorporate climate risk scoring to future-proof incentives. Migration and urban pressures. World Bank projects 45 million internal climate migrants for India by 2050. Urban slums balloon, straining housing, water and sanitation. Use adaptive urban planning, climate resilient master plans, blue-green infrastructure, inclusionary zoning for affordable housing, and portable social protection benefits. Gender and informal sector. Women comprise 42% of agri labor and bear unpaid care burdens when climate shocks strike. Walking farther for water, nursing heat-sick elders. The gender nutrition gap widens as female food intake is often last. Insert gender-responsive adaptation. Finance. Women-led self-help groups get concessional credit for climate-smart enterprises. Policy Toolkit. National level. India's updated NAPCC plus 36 SAPCC's mainstream adaptation across ministries, from highways using reflective asphalt to telecom towers with cyclone wind codes. Tokenize whole of government climate action. Mention the proposed National Adaptation Fund 2.0 with outcome based disbursals and alignment to the Global Loss and Damage Fund. Mission Life. Behavioral nudge. Mission Life. Lifestyle for environment. Targets citizens' daily acts, switching off appliances, segregating waste, favoring public transport. NITI's dashboard tracks AHA, avoid, halt, adapt, replace actions. Behavioral science suggests nudges, default settings, social proof, deliver low-cost emissions. National Green Hydrogen Mission with rupees 19,144 crore in incentives. India targets 5 million tons of green H2 a year by 2030, creating 600,000 jobs and cutting LNG imports by 15%. Emphasize electrolyzers, offshore wind to H2 hubs, and hydrogen corridors for steel, fertilizer, and refineries. Drop the term energy security decarbonization synergy. Electric mobility and carbon markets, FAME2 subsidies, battery swapping guidelines, and the 2025 carbon credit trading scheme accelerate transport decarbonization. Carbon credits from avoided diesel can finance EV charging infra. Mention avoid shift improve framework, avoid trips, shift modes, improve vehicle efficiency, popular with UPSC examiners. Nature-based solutions restoring mangroves, wetlands, and urban forests yields triple dividends, risk reduction, carbon sink, livelihood. GeoEye's Mishti scheme aims 12,000 kilometers of mangroves by 2030. Introduce blue-green infrastructure, bioswales, rain gardens as cost-effective urban resilience. Innovation and R&D, Indian climate tech startups raised 2 billion in 2024 spanning AI crop yield forecasts, flood early warning drones and low carbon cement. Reference GoEye's Climate Innovation Sandbox for regulatory fast tracking. Insert green innovation ecosystem, link academia, incubators and venture capital. Pathway to resilient growth. The strategic tripod. Integrate climate risk into all planning tools, e.g., Envis. Leverage global finance and technology via sovereign green bonds and MDB partnerships, and target vulnerable people and places through adaptive safety nets. Stress, leave no one behind, aligning with SDG ethos. UPSC essay and GS3 keywords bookmarks for quick recall. Climate proofing, just transition, nature dependent GDP, loss and damage fund, Paris Article 6, BRSR core, blue green infrastructure, heat stress economics, pro planet people. Weave them naturally, don't bullet dump.